listen, we're going all out. We're ready for this test match. We need to go and perform.
Can you see Argentina beating the All Blacks?
You know, if the whole team's crying in the national anthem, then you're up for a big game.
360. It seems to be gathering real momentum.
They're just conservative, and they're worried that a new model like this looks gimmicky. Everything looks gimmicky at the start.
We've got the Women's World Cup coming up.
I just hope that everyone, even the teams that might be 8th or 9th, just really understand that it's just a moment in time and you've got to play the games of your lives, because for me it's just another opportunity to grow the game.
Right, welcome to Rugby Rivals. We've got everyone's here this week. We've got Victor Matfield just getting ready to play golf as per normal. We've got Sir John Kerwin showing off those beautiful white glasses, and Andrew Trimble is joining us back from Ireland after enjoying the Lions' triumph. We've just been talking up Australia. Are you worried about them this weekend?
It's a big test match. There's two ways of looking at it, and I see Rusty is into the media with that as well. As will the Aussie players be more ready for the test match because they had these 3 very hard test matches to prepare, or will they be a bit tired after the 3 tough test matches, all the pressure, mental fatigue? So it will be interesting. I think the South African boys has been working real hard here in South Africa. We've got a big group testing each other. Will we be as sharp as we need to be in that first test match? Probably not, but it's going to be a very good test match on Saturday.
So if I understood so which way is Rusty going? Is Rusty throwing out, they've had 3 test matches, they'll be hard and this is going to be really hard? Is that his line, or is he throwing both things into the media?
No, the media was going at him. Won't we be a bit unprepared and the Australians be match ready after the 3? And he just threw in, well, won't they be a little bit mental fatigue? We're nice and fresh. We've been working together. We're ready to go. So he's pretty positive about his preparation. So I think he's pretty confident.
It's interesting that he wouldn't. Like, why would he not take that as the press are giving me this? Obviously, like, Razi's got so much credit and so much in the bank and so much favor with the press. They're offering him that opportunity, and immediately he's saying no. That's not what we're looking for, I suppose. Because he had that excuse, didn't he? Going into it, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think you can have Andrew, you can have excuse, but I think he doesn't want to leave a back door. So you'll be probably at the players. You're fresh. You've had a good season. Now you had a little break. You freshen up. You always want to play less games. So we're ready to go. So I don't think he wants a back door as an excuse for the team. So he's out there. Listen, we're going all out. We're ready for this test match. We need to go and perform.
I think that old stuff of players not being prepared and all that sort of stuff, I reckon it's bullshit now. Like, we have guys staying out of test matches for injuries and coming straight back into them. I can't believe it. Like, I always thought it was, prep. What I think the Australians have done over the last 3 test matches against the Lions is found their mojo for how they want to play, and then I think they've found some physicality that matched the Lions' physicality. Will that be enough in South Africa? I hope it doesn't rain, on hard soil with probably the most physical opposition. You're going to have 5 Will Skeltons against you when you play South Africa, because that's just how they play. So for me, I don't know if this, I think it's possibly just media people talking about, are they hardened? I mean, will they be tired? I think it's all bullshit. I just think the best team will win. That's what you do. You play test matches, you're ready for them, and I don't think there'll be fatigue. I don't think there'll be match ready. I think it'll be 2 sides that are just going to go at each other.
You don't think Australia looked undercooked in that first test against the Lions?
Well, I think they weren't ready for the intensity. I'll give you that. But I think that was their mental fault, right? I think they just, for 40 minutes, were non-existent. And then they thought, shit, whether they were overthinking stuff, whether there was a little bit of over-coaching, which is normal when you're playing a first test match, you know. And then in the second half, and then for the rest of the series, they sort of found their mojo a wee bit. You know, for me, they sort of just played a style of rugby that I didn't think that I thought they'd forgotten. You know, and if you talk to David Campese, he says we have too many foreign coaches. We need to understand what our DNA. If you talk to Victor, you know, about South African DNA, then you know what you're going to get. So for me, it was a bit of an identity understanding. I don't think they were underdone. I just think they weren't ready for the intensity, which is a mental thing. And sometimes
there's absolutely no confusion ever over what South Africa's rugby identity is. So they just hit the ground running on minute one, regardless. Whereas Australia in that kind of crisis at the minute, what do we stand for? What kind of characterizes our game? But South Africa will obviously, everybody in the world knows how we play rugby, and we're going to do that times 10.
Well, the other interesting thing for me is I'm not disagreeing with the fact that I don't know where this Aussie side is, right? I don't know where this. I agree with you. I don't know where it is. So for me, it's also when you go every single rugby team that goes to South Africa, that is your test, man. Like, you know, we didn't pass it last year as the All Blacks, but I thought we could have. You know, and I think we'll be a better team this year. But I think I'm the same with you. I don't know. Like, I know Victor's always very confident as a South African man, but I don't know where this Aussie team sits. And I'm hoping it's going to be another great test match.
Well, I must say, if I can take the two routes, do I rather want to be almost game hardened coming through a Lions Test series into this, or like South Africa? I'll probably still prefer the Aussies. I think those three matches will make them sharper and ready to go. The only thing for them now is they need to fly 12 hours. Jet lag will kick in. First test is at altitude as well in Joburg. So I want to see guys like Skelton, Tupou that brings the physicality. Can they stay up with the pace of the game? So I think this will be a game where South Africa won't make it slow, Sir John Cohen. I think they will try and lift the pace and see if the Aussies, after this 3 hard test matches, flying for 12 hours, jet lag, altitude, if they can stay up with the boys.
Here's a question for you then, Victor. Would you start Skelton and Tupou, or would you bring them off the bench and play them in the second half? Because traditionally South Africa, when it's a big game, you get a bit like, you know, first half you can be a bit rusty.
Bombarded in the second half. You get bombarded in the second half.
Yeah, well, you guys are going to...
With a bomb squad.
I'm sure you're going to go back to the bomb squad that was a fart squad before. But, like, would you, if you were an Aussie coach, would you actually start Skelton, or would you want to finish with him?
No, I think Skelton you need to have there as long as possible. You need to have them in the beginning, trying to match that physicality, the intimidation of the South African back or forwards. So that's something I'm looking forward to. I want to see a guy like Skelton against Eben Etzebeth. I don't think it's Mauro Itoje. It's something different he'll be facing this weekend. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I mean, Skelton is a power in world rugby. If you look at him, even when he went with La Rochelle to Leinster back in the day, the Heineken Cup or the Investec Cup, he's a force to be reckoned with. So I would like to see him. The one thing that he will be tested is his fitness at altitude, quick game. The ground will be hard. So it will be a quick game. So that will be interesting to see.
He has demonstrated in the past he's got that engine. I think to play him in the second half to try and compete with that bomb squad, you're probably selling him short because he's got more than 40 minutes in him. He's demonstrated this in the past, even coming back from injury, as we've seen the last couple of weeks. But even famously for La Rochelle against Leinster, going 80 minutes and then coming up with a big play right at the end of the game to be the difference. So yeah.
So why do we drag him off in test matches then?
Test matches, I suppose, another level, though, isn't it? Even if he's playing 60 coming back from injury, how long did he play that first week? Test 2? He played 50, did he? And then 60 the second week?
45 about.
Yeah, so he's probably getting there. He's getting towards what he's capable of.
Is anyone giving an Australian victory against South Africa at altitude in this first test?
No.
I think they'll be a lot more competitive than Australia would have been 6 months ago, 12 months ago. But being competitive at altitude against the Springboks and going for 60 minutes and then maybe unraveling a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with Andrew as well. I think it's going to be a tough game for about 50, 60 minutes. They're sharp coming into it. Will they be able to last for 80 minutes? When they need to make the changes, will they have the same impact off the bench? We've seen the impact of the bench these days are so important. So do they have the depth that South Africa have where they can really put on 7 players that can make a difference in the second half?
So why don't we just play Will Skelton until he can't walk? Like, for me, that's why I said, do you bring him on, 20 minutes into the game? Because I don't think they can win a test match without that physicality for 80 minutes.
It will also be interesting to see how Rassie starts. Will he start, let's say, with Handré Pollard? Then it will probably be more conservative in the beginning, and then probably either Libbok or Sasha in the second half where they will open it up. Or does he start, like last year a few times, he started with almost a Libbok or a Sasha and then bring Handré off the bench almost to be steady at the end. So start off fast. So yeah, it will also be interesting, and you'll see it in his selection how he's going to start the test match.
Okay, let's get into the next game with All Blacks up in Argentina. Argentina is another tough place to play. So can you see Argentina beating the All Blacks, Trimby?
Probably not, to be honest. But I mean, Argentina just they've to turn the corner is kind of patronizing, but we've seen, what Argentina are capable of. They don't tend to perform with any level of consistency. Would be the only thing. They don't get consistent wins, but they do get scalps. They get reasonably irregular scalps, and there's no reason why that couldn't be this weekend. It's probably unlikely, not going to be the bookies' favorite, but I think everybody knows now when you go to Argentina, you're in for a proper test match, and you got to have your wits about you if you're going to get that across the line. It's not, again, it's patronizing to say it's a potential banana skin. It's way more than that, but they don't compete with that level of consistency, but they can be very competitive in one-off test matches.
Yeah, I love it. Like, I always say this, if the whole team's crying in the national anthem, then you're up for a big game. If only half of them are crying, then you're going to be okay. Yeah, I don't understand how people continue to, what's the right word, underestimate Argentina, because they can beat anyone on their day. I think their challenge is consistency. I don't disagree with you, Andrew. I think there's a little bit of a transition going on at the moment with them. So do they have that? So most Italian teams and most Latin teams seem to. France don't do this anymore, but they used to do it. They'd have cyclical teams. So there'd be a whole generation that would play together for 10 years and they'd be amazing, right? And then they'd have this change and they go backwards. There's been a whole era of these guys that have been playing for Argentina that I think are, actually going pretty damn good. So do they beat the All Blacks on Saturday? No, because I'm never going to back, I'm not going to back our team. I also think that there's some really good internal competition in the All Blacks, and we want South Africa. We want you, my men. I'm telling you. All right? So that is my boot. That is the big
Is that your Arnold Schwarzenegger impression?
that was my South African you talk kak Kieran accent, but not very good. But I think we are playing to play the world champions, and we really want that scalp. So I think there's a lot of energy in this team. I think there's a lot of guys who want to prove themselves. I think there's a lot of guys that are vying for positions. So I think we will beat them because we will be incredibly motivated to do so.
Yeah, I think Argentina is going to be very dangerous this weekend. They always start the Rugby Championship off with a bang. They always at their most dangerous in the beginning of this competition. Again, I don't think they've got the depth to go for 6 weeks. But I think we'll see 23 Argentinians crying the anthem on Saturday, even while the haka is going. So I think they're going to be up for it. We saw last year with South Africa how difficult it is to play them over there. So I think they can definitely give a little upset on this weekend. I think they're going to be ready for this game. This is probably the one game where they said, listen, this is the game we want to win in the Rugby Championship. And maybe New Zealand is looking too far forward to South Africa. Maybe they must just focus on this first game.
I know we're kind of, it's tongue in cheek and we're joking a little bit about the Argentinians crying, but it is their greatest strength and their greatest weakness. So they can get there. They can get to that high ceiling when they're fully invested and motivated and emotional and fired up. We all know what that looks like when Argentina get that right, but you can't cry every week before every anthem. You can't be that emotionally invested. It's so difficult to do that. Eventually you got to be kind of pragmatic about it. And there's a pragmatism and a kind of a weekly just going through the process of getting yourself ready to perform without having to tap into that emotional thing. You can't do that every week.
That's a really interesting conversation, Andrew, because I think that sometimes the modern player and coach get that wrong. I think actually sometimes we are too painted by numbers and I think that was the case with the Aussie team in the first 40 minutes of the first test. I think sometimes we think a little bit too much about stuff. I agree with you about the Argentinians, but I also think sometimes we lose rugby games because we are too process focused, and we've forgotten a little bit about that, that little bit of X factor and that emotion you've got to bring every week. I don't know how, the professional athlete does it because they play so many tests, but I think it's certainly something that you need to try and find that balance.
Yeah, for me, there's probably two teams in the world that can perform consistently well, actually, without that emotional high before a game, and that's probably New Zealand and Ireland, where they focus on the process. They just go out and they do whatever they do. With the South African teams I played, with the best teams I played, we almost try to take that emotion out to have that consistency. But unfortunately, and we've seen it, that's why South Africa, most of the time, when we are the favorites, we don't perform up to that level. When we're the underdogs, no one gives us a chance. Then South Africans actually stand up because then they bring that emotion. So it's a very difficult thing, John, like you said. You want to take that emotion out because you want to focus, listen, what do we need to do? And I think the older you get, the older team you've got, you probably can do that. But that emotion, you just need that. When you get people to really run onto that field, is something that they play for. Somehow in rugby, that just gives you that extra 5-10%. And in South Africa, in the big games, we probably need that. Where I think New Zealand and Ireland somehow can get away with that. Just let's go out, let's play, let's do whatever we need to do.
But how can you expect me to believe that when the biggest competition in the world, you've won it? Like, that is cuck, man. Like, absolutely, I just can't believe that because, like, in the biggest tournament in the world, you've won it more than anyone else, which is annoying the shit out of the rest of the world, right? So you must be getting something right. I actually
But in a World Cup, you actually just need to win probably 3 big games. So you need to be able to lift yourself for that. Where I've said it in the past, in the good old days of Super Rugby was definitely harder to win than a World Cup because you have to perform 12 weeks consistently. In a World Cup, and especially South Africa has shown it now, in the past, you couldn't lose a pool game and win the World Cup. Now they've lost the last 2 World Cups. They lost in pool stages and then won a big semi-final, won a big final. Okay, the previous one a big quarter-final as well. So most of the time it's probably just 3 big games that you need to get yourself up for.
But you're right about the similarities between Ireland and New Zealand. Now, to different extents before you guys start to abuse me representing Ireland and never representing Ireland at semi-final stages. But it's a different skill set. Winning week to week and just being kind of mindless about it, just being a stone cold killer performer. We beat whoever's in front of us is like just kind of detaching the emotion. But then once you get to knockout stages, and we've seen this with like someone like Ronan O'Gara with La Rochelle, versus Leinster, who just do it every single week, apart from it gets the business end of the season, and then they can't quite get stuff across the line because those are one-off events, and you tap into something different. And there's something emotional, something intangible about those. South Africa seem to do that. New Zealand have done it at times, but there's definitely been a couple of World Cups got away from as well, and those are all one-off knockout games. Ireland have never got there, so JK, you're probably offended that I'm putting Ireland and New Zealand in the same category, but I agree with Victor.
No, I'm not actually, mate. It's a really intriguing conversation for me because you guys were, you were professional athletes. I was only a professional athlete for the last few years of my career. So was it something you guys consciously thought about, and how did you do it? Like Victor, like if you said to me you tried to control your emotions, like I just wouldn't. Watching you play, I'd go, well, you didn't do a very good job, mate, because you were hoeing into everything and you always looked like you were on the limit, and that's a compliment, mate. And I just wonder how you guys, as professionals, if you could give them tell me how you do that. How do you find that balance? Because surely that's an emotion, finding the balance.
Yeah, I think that's the trick to get right. I've played a game with Bucky's Boerta where we played in Cardiff against Wales. And as we walked out, he's like, Combo, I'm not really keen for this game. It's cold out there, what the hell? But joking with me. And I'm like, okay. He ran out and he was man of the match afterwards. So everyone always thought he was not at all a guy that jumped against the walls and stuff like that. But again, I think for South Africans, and that's why I think if you look at Ireland, look at New Zealand, if they're the favorite going into a game and they're much better than the other team, then they put 50, 60 points on them. In South Africa, Russia is kind of getting there with this team. But, when we were favorites, all of a sudden you struggle, you scrap away, you win with 5 or 6 points or 7 points. But if New Zealand doesn't have pressure on them, they get it in front quickly in the game, it's game over. They don't. It just feels for me the moment there's freedom for New Zealand and Ireland, they're at their best. So as South Africans, when we play them, we try and put that pressure on them the whole time so that they don't get that freedom. Where South Africa, I think they like that because the moment people want to get into that, that's when we're at our best because then the physicality come to the front, then we can get on top of people. Then that pressure game comes into the game as well. So it's just a different mindset.
I would have interpreted yourself and Backy's probably the same way, Victor. Backy's as the emotional one, you as the kind of more thoughtful, strategic one, and that combination of the two is probably an illustration of the two elements of kind of mindset that teams need. And I think if you look at Ireland through the 90s and the noughties, just coming into kind of really kind of embracing professionalism and then becoming more and more professional every year with, Eddie O'Sullivan, Declan Kidney, then Joe Schmidt. And over that kind of 20-year period, probably replacing a lot of the emotion with a lot of the what was missing in Irish rugby, which was thoughtful, strategic, process-driven, all that sort of stuff. But it's really important to not replace that, but supplement that. You have to have both elements. You have to be able to get to tap into something emotional whenever it's a big occasion. And Ireland have probably failed on a number of occasions. France are another one, a really good example of Fabien Galtier bringing in, obviously extremely thoughtful, technical, strategic about the game. And they've just been able to supplement. We all know French are probably all this emotion about South Africa, Argentina. French are the most emotional rugby team you'll ever play, I think. And that just means they can be unbelievable one day and then kind of unravel the next if their crowd get in their back. So the emotions is something that's very useful, but it needs to be supplemented with that other element of the game.
So the next thing I want to ask you about I think the sign will be how committed you are to this competition by how silent you are. 360. It seems to be gathering real momentum. People, they're talking about big name players being signed up. They're talking about rugby league players being signed up. What have you heard, and how exciting is it, or how bad is it for the game?
Well, I'll jump straight in, mate, because I won't keep quiet. We're losing all our top players to Japan and to Europe. So if we can have a competition, and you guys might not remember this, but I'm old. So I was around when the Indian Cricket League took off, the IPL, right? Everyone thought this is the death of cricket. It actually helped Test match cricket. It helped keep our best cricket players in the game, right? So if they don't want to take over the world, I think it's going to succeed. When I mean take over the world, I mean they don't become like a Super Rugby competition every year, but if they could do a 9-week window or a 6-week window, the best players in the world, they get paid a shitload of money, which means they can come back to Super Rugby and earn the New Zealand peso, right, and stay in our game and stay so our supporters can see them, then I think it's got to be great for New Zealand. And I'm not going to talk for you, Victor, but I presume it should be good for South Africa because you're losing all your players to Europe, whether you think that's good for them or not. And I think it's probably less good for Ireland. That would be my opinion.
I don't know if it's less good. I think it's less good for Ireland anyway. There's so much uncertainty over what it looks like, and the details are kind of just coming out bits and pieces. We're all hearing rumors, but in theory, I think it's a brilliant idea. Only really the main thing kind of driving my opinion on that is just because Ulster rugby is just kind of feeling at the minute. Rugby is just kind of just about financially viable. It's just there's difficulties everywhere. MLS is chaos now. Even though we all kind of want US rugby to kick on, Premiership rugby, URC, whatever. Like financially, it just feels like it's struggling. And this is a game now. None of us can be objective here because we're all rugby people. But I feel like rugby should be the NFL of Europe or the NFL of the rest of the world, and it should be a showcase. It's got everything. It's got physicality. It's got rivalry. It's got tradition. It's got athleticism. It should be a showcase celebrated by more people than we know are rugby supporters. And I think this could be the mechanism to do that. Market it properly, make it a proper spectacle, big stadiums, big venues, everything going into it, fireworks, and this might be the mechanism to do that. And I agree, JK, as long as we get good quality rugby there and then we get them back and we maintain the international game, I don't see why that's not a win. But yeah, it's just a mechanism to getting more eyeballs on rugby, getting rugby the attention that I think it deserves, and then getting players looked after financially as a result is another benefit.
Yeah, I'm always open for any tournament or anything that brings money into our game. I think rugby is so far behind financially to some of the other sports. And I mean, we talk about the IPL. That changed cricket. That changed the lives of cricketers. So if it can inject a lot of money into the game, that our players afterwards can be better off, then I think it's good. Yes, we need to balance it. We don't want to lose our heart in the game. We still want Test match rugby to be very important, but if they can do it well, they can bring money into the game. I think it's a good thing for rugby.
The issues.
The only thing I'll add
to
that, guys, is it's a slight on our politicians and the people who run our game, right? So it shouldn't take a rebel organisation to wake ourselves up. But we've been professional for 30 years, but we still have an amateur structure of governance running our game. So we move too slow. We haven't worked out a professional model that's going to work for everyone. We can't talk to each other. We all get in our corners. New Zealand looks after themselves. Ireland look after themselves. South Africa look after themselves. And that's our problem. We need to get some really strong business into our game so that we're not so political. And then things like this should be coming from World Rugby, not some idea from someone else.
Yeah, World Rugby's had plenty of opportunities, as you say. JK, we're slow. It's conservative. The whole kind of governance is all conservative. We're careful. We're too concerned about the ethos and the spirit of rugby. I think that's something just saying that kind of embarrasses me, because it's like a snobbery. We're saying, oh, rugby is for this type of person or someone who grows up in a rugby. Like, ultimately, we want rugby to be celebrated by everybody else out there. We know that this is an amazing sport. We know this changes lives. We know this is entertainment, everything, all the good stuff, and we want it to be wider than kind of the niche market that it is at the minute. But I think the governance or the decision makers or whatever, they're just conservative, and they're worried that a new model like this looks gimmicky. Everything looks gimmicky at the start. The NFL looked gimmicky at the start. The Lions probably looked gimmicky at the start. This idea is grand, so it's quite
to win the rugby championship.
Conservative rugby heads, but I think we just need to be a bit more open-minded.
Two things before we go. One is the rugby championship. Is it harder to win the rugby championship than it is to win the Six Nations?
Not if you're New Zealand. I've said it before. I mean, New Zealand dominate the Rugby Championship, and I mean, you know the stats, JK. You'll probably throw it out now. So I think it's tough. We did miss Australia in the last few years. If they're competitive as well, it's a fantastic competition. I think the last few years it was more just South Africa and New Zealand competing for the trophy. But yeah, I love the Rugby Championship, to play against New Zealand, to play against Australia, to fly down to Argentina and play them there. It's very tough games.
I suppose there's over the last kind of 10, 15 years in the Six Nations, Wales went through that period where they were dominant. England have been dominant. France have been dominant recently. Ireland have been dominant. Everybody apart from Italy and Scotland, a lot of years can realistically win the competition. That's not the case in the Rugby Championship.
Yeah, I think if you just look at the stats, and you brought up an interesting conversation that I have, Victor, to New Zealanders. Would we give up a few championships to win the next World Cup? The pressure that you have when you're an All Black, we actually want to win every competition, so that championship is really important to us. But do we get too conservative towards growing, some of our youngsters to be ready for the next World Cup? So that's sort of a question mark. We can talk about that some other time. I just think from a stats point of view, if you look at the top four in the world, it's normally in the championship, or the top five in the world, So I think just by the stats of World Rugby, it becomes a harder tournament. I absolutely love the Six Nations. Anyone who is involved in the Six Nations, it is without doubt one of the greatest tournaments from a fan, from a passion, from a, rivalry point of view. So I think hardcore rugby, I think the championship's amazing. I think experience for player and spectator can't beat the Six Nations.
And just to finish, we've got the Women's World Cup coming up. It's only just over a week away, and it's going to be a magnificent tournament. Huge ticket sales already, a lot of interest. Let's Trimby, we'll start with you. How do you see the tournament playing out, and who's the ultimate champion?
I suppose from an Irish perspective, the Irish ladies have really only been professional for the last 12 or 18 months, and you saw a big uplift immediately whenever they got some funding and they were able to kind of dedicate some time to that. But the gap to bridge is quite far between England and France. Then New Zealand are obviously kind of leading the way there. So it kind of feels like women's rugby, it's probably not as competitive as we'd like it to be, because everybody's at different starting points and everybody's at different stages of the kind of development or the progress they've made from that starting point. So I think unfortunately we'll probably see the same old faces, and it would be great if it was more competitive, but it probably won't be. It'll probably be the same old faces being dominant and being successful.
I think we're in the same position as Ireland, where we've only had one team, the Bulls, that's fully professional in South Africa for the last 12 months. We're starting to grow the game. We've put some great coaches, Swayze de Brain, helping with our national team now. Rassi and our whole Moby unit behind help the girls as well. So there's been a lot of development. I think where we were a year ago to where we are now. A year ago we had to fight just to get into the World Cup. I think we can be competitive. Yes, can we make a semi-final? It will probably touch and go. That will probably be our aim, to try and get to a semi-final. We probably can't win the competition. And like Andrew said, I think between probably England, New Zealand and Canada, it's not too bad as well. Those three teams will probably dominate the whole thing.
Yeah, I think England and the Black Ferns, Australia, Canada, I think they're up there. I think they've been the professionals for the longest time. What I do hope is that everyone really understands a moment in time. I think the Women's World Cup in New Zealand a few years ago was the greatest step forward for women's rugby. You know, it was so successful that Ireland had to pull their finger out and start making professional. Same with your South Africans, Victor, you know, pulled their finger out and made it more professional. So I just hope that everyone, even the teams that might be 8th or 9th, just really understand that it's just a moment in time and you've got to play the games of your lives, because for me, it's just another opportunity to grow the game. And I think by the next World Cup, hopefully we should have, 15 teams that are professional. But I think it's still going to be the traditional women's teams that have been pretty dominant. I think England are going to be incredibly hard to beat. They were hard to beat in the last one. They've got a bee in their bonnet because they lost to us in the final. So I think they are out and out favourites with a bee in their bonnet. They're going to be really hard to beat.
Right. So everyone in the comments this week, if you can just sort of maybe limit 10% to JK's scarf, we can do 20, 30% to his glasses, and that leaves 70% for the rugby. Next week, well, let's hope we're all pretty happy because the Rugby Championship starts, and Trimby, you get to relax, and JK and Victor, you're the guys on edge. So all the best for the weekend, and we'll see you next week on Rugby Rivals.